I'm Hafeza, and I study aerospace engineering. When I hear climate change, I typically think of extreme weather. Forecasters always talk about the next big tornado, the next big hurricane, or some extreme winds in an area.
Road closures, flight cancellations in the hundreds, power outages by the tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. Yes.
Recently, there have been record high temperatures in certain areas of the country. Other things I typically think of are melting ice caps, heightening sea levels, just overall destruction of environmental treasures. I typically go on the computer, online, like Yahoo headlines, or I just search up, and I'll typically look at all the data and just make my own conclusions off of that. Doing that, in my opinion, avoids the theatrical side of news.
All right, doesn't matter what the subject is. It's about personality, it's about conflict, it's about drama, okay? It's a game, all right? That's why we call it the news. It's just a game.
The commentaries over the video splice or whatever they're giving to you is typically given in a dramatic way.
Next we have Lisa Simpson.
There is no Springfield 50 years in the future. With global warming trapping the CO2 inside our poisonous atmosphere, our superheated oceans will rise. Humanity baking in deserts that once fed the world.
Directors use argument tactics to persuade their audiences to prove to them that it's true. An example of this is a global warming commercial where you see these kids and they're just running their faces and each one of them says tick, tick,
Severe
tick, tick.
droughts. Tick, tick, tick. Devastating hurricanes. Tick, 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 tick.
Our future
Tick,
is up
tick, tick.
to you.
But it is a tactic to an argument, and it is a tactic to persuade the audience that global warming is real. Another commercial that was brought up was this kid sitting in a bathtub and the water levels were rising and he was splashing the water around, but then you noticed that the parent walked away and walked out of the room. And when you're watching it, you become emotionally attached to this child. And this emotional attachment is another use of the tactic pathos. It's a pathetic appeal. When there's a very intense news report on some ice storm or some hurricane or a tornado, when I look at that, the news, I think, all right, what could I do? What can I do to change this? And your initial reaction would be, all right, let's start recycling, let's start getting energy efficient products. But then you notice after a while, let's say you've done this for about a year and you haven't found many positive externalities of your actions. What are you going to do? Do you continue doing it or do you just start giving up? And the fact of the matter is a lot of people actually gave up on their actions because climate change is not a very easy thing to change. And these four tactics are known as ethos, pathos, kairos, and logos, which they use in their commercials. What is important to know is that in terms of global warming commercials, they typically use pathos, a pathetic appeal, where it causes the audience to become very emotionally attached. An example of this is a global warming commercial where you see these kids and they're just running their faces, and each one of them says tick, 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 tick. And towards the end of the commercial, they say, "Are you?" They say something on the lines of you being ready to take action. Looking further into this commercial, you'll notice that it's just kids saying tick, tick. And when you think about it, kids saying tick, tick, well, first you're thinking, okay, these kids may not be living because of global warming, which is a very dramatic thing to say. But it is a tactic to an argument, and it is a tactic to persuade the audience that global warming is real. This kid sitting in a bathtub, and the water levels were rising, and he was splashing the water around, but then you noticed that the owner who turned on the water, or the parent, walked away and walked out of the room. And then so you're going to come to this conclusion that this kid's putting the water, letting the water rise, I mean, ultimately drowning it. That's what you're thinking. And when you're watching it, you become emotionally attached to this child. And this emotional attachment is another use of the tactic pathos. It's a pathetic appeal.